What happens to you and your siblings if you've grown up with a toxic parent? This is a topic that comes up a lot, and we're going to dive deep into it today. If this is the first time that you have ever been here, I talk about growing up in dysfunction, toxic parents, and how to heal from that and reclaim your power. So if that feels interesting to you, do make sure that you have turned on the notifications and subscribed so you pick up on every video that I release. So today we're talking about siblings and the impacts that that can have on you. And in order for us to do that, we need to go back to understanding the family roles that happen within a dysfunctional family system. So in order for me to do that, let's get rid of that. In order for me to do that, I'm going to use my very high-tech whiteboard. Now, at the center is always the toxic parent, as we know. Next to them, we're going to put potentially an enabler, okay? So that's either the second parent, sometimes it could be the step parent, whatever it is. But the second adult in the house, if there is one, is often the enabler. We'll do another video at another point when we talk about the complexities that come with an enabler. There are varying different degrees of toxicity within them. Some of them are simply victims of abuse, but some of them actually creep into being much more in line with the toxicity of the parent as well. That's a sliding scale. Again, lots of different people will tell you different things about that, but I think it's nuanced and I think each situation is different. Then there's normally 4 roles. The first one you have is the hero child, sometimes known as the golden child. You then have what I call the mascot, sometimes known as the joker or the jester in some families. Then you have the scapegoat, pretty self-explanatory, but we are going to talk about it as well. And then there is often a lost child as well, okay? So understanding these dynamics that are normally taken on, these roles that are normally taken on within this dynamic can help you to understand yourself and your siblings. Now, the hero child is often the firstborn, but not always. And as we go through these, understand that these roles will change. If there's not 4 children, you may find that you or your siblings will take on more than one of those roles as well, okay? But the hero child is often the firstborn child. It's the one that is pushed as being like the golden hero child. The toxic parent will often cite these as, proving that they're not the issue. I raised you all the same. Look how amazing this one is doing. They'll go on to ace their exams. They're often very caring, looking after the other siblings in many cases, in those initial years anyway. And then, like I say, the toxic parent will use them, to be able to say, I must be doing something right, because they will often treat these completely different than the other 3, particularly the scapegoat, all right? The mascot is the one that everybody in the house looks to make them happy. Think about the mascot child. I resonate with the mascot child, by the way. That is somebody who's very good at making themselves likable, very good at getting everybody around them to like them, very likable, lovable, builds their whole personality and persona around how happy they make everybody else. Huge problems when you get into adulthood if you do that, by the way, because it's self-abandonment. Then the scapegoat, which I've written scapegoat there. The scapegoat is the one who causes all of the issues in the eyes of both parents, particularly the toxic parent. Yeah, this wouldn't be happening. I wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for you. The reason everybody in the house is unhappy because of you and your behavior. Now think about it. The scapegoat survives in that system by being the scapegoat. So they may even go and fulfill this prophecy. They will be naughty at school and stuff like that because that's how they survive within the system, right? They're often more of the truth speakers as well. That's why they become an issue and why they often end up being scapegoated. The lost child, often born later on, is like everybody. You'll know a lost child in your life today. It's the person that was at the party that was there, but you just don't remember them being there because they're just so used to blending into the background. They're so agreeable, so passive, so appeasing. They never get upset with anything. They just are the experts at blending in and not being the issue. So when you understand these roles, right, you may resonate with one or more of them. You may be able to start to look and see different parts in different roles within your siblings as well, right? When you're thinking about your other siblings around you. Obviously, as you go into adulthood, if you really adopt these roles and adapt these roles, um, and they translate then into your adulthood. So that I talked a little bit about how the mascot then just becomes somebody who just makes everybody happy all of the time. They can be quite appeasing as well. Yeah. The scapegoat might go on to be the black sheep of the family. They're the one that often speaks a lot of the truth. So they go on and be the black sheep. And they're often ostracized by the family. They might talk more openly about the toxic parents' toxicity. They'll be made to feel like they're crazy. Think about any abusive system that you see. The scapegoat is often the one that's made out to be crazy, labeled with something. They may even get a fucking diagnosis for something in Western culture nowadays because their behavior is so erratic. And nobody, think about what's going on here as well. Nobody is ever pointing to the toxic parent. Nobody is ever looking at them and saying maybe they're the problem, right? It's always the scapegoat. Now, like I say, think about now when you're in your adulthood, if you are one of these siblings, the issues that this is going to cause is going to make it fractured between you now and your siblings as you get into those into your adult years. Now, I don't want to insinuate that the hero child always ends up being like the toxic parent, but the hero child may look at the scapegoat in adulthood, or the mascot who's likely going to struggle with issues with drugs, alcohol, any kind of uppers because they need them to constantly be happy and make everybody around them all the time. You know, they want to be the party animal and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, the hero child may look at the others and just think, I don't know why you're like this. We had the perfect childhood, right? Mum or dad was never toxic. There was no, they did nothing but build me up, right? So they may experience that particularly in young adulthood. And what you might find is that the relationship becomes very fractured between the hero child and the scapegoat and the mascot, or the lost child in that way, because the hero child sees their childhood very differently. But again, the mascot's going to have seen their childhood differently to the scapegoat, who will see it differently to the lost child as well. The lost child is very appeasing normally to the toxic parent, so the lost child is not likely to want to argue or fall out with anybody, right? So they might be quite hard to fall out with. But the hero child sometimes can end up becoming exactly like the toxic parent, right? Not always, not remotely always. You may find that these are going to transfer and move. The hero child may move out and go to college or university or whatever, or move out early, and then the mascot may become the hero child. So they change and evolve all of the time, right? And I'm not suggesting for a second that this is fixed in stone and all the hero children become toxic. But that can be what you see. And the reality is that when you have a toxic parent, like everybody says to me all the time, have you thought it could be about their trauma, think about their lives? True, it really could be that, right? And the likelihood maybe is that it is that. So we have to then say, if there is 3 or 4 children, maybe one of them is going to end up being like the parent. And then everything that I say about toxic parents becomes the same with siblings. Now, important to understand that particularly in childhood, all of these are victims of this. But at some point, life forces us to have to take responsibility, right? And so then when you get into adulthood and you're building adult relationships, right, and you're trying to build your adult family life as well, you have to then take your siblings for exactly who they are. The same then becomes true as what it is with your parent. You have to see your siblings for exactly as they are, exactly as they show up. See the good in them, see the bad in them, and then make a decision on the relationship that you have on them based on exactly that. It's not worth trying to change who you are, adapt who you are to become something different in the hope that it will change who they are, because you don't have the power to change who they are. Now, you may want to give some of your siblings some grace. The knee-jerk reaction is to realize that your parent is as toxic and horrible and as abusive as they are, and then to just throw the grenade in and say, I'm cutting you all out. I'm not going to have a relationship with you. Now, in some cases, that's going to be the only option. right? Because if you are seeing your experience in its entirety, seeing it for what it is, what you may find, you may be the mascot child, but you may have woken up and done some work on yourself and realized the dysfunction that you live in, and you may then find that the other siblings don't want to see that, and so then they start to scapegoat you as well, right? So then it becomes complex. But I do think that you need to be careful not to throw the grenade in. Is there ways to have relationships with your siblings, right? Are you now tarnishing one of your siblings with the exact same brush as your parent when maybe it's not quite like that, right? And as much as you can with your siblings, right, because you've had the same experiences, you want to see if you can build them relationships. But, actually, it is an and again. There's a continuum here. Same as it is with the toxic parent. How close to the fire can you sit without getting burnt? All right. And it's different for everybody. And you have to take each scenario exactly, as it is and as it shows to be. So let's summarize, right? And in summary, I know it feels like a little bit of a cop out here, but every situation is different. And you need to take your own situation as your own situation. Try and make the decisions that are best for you. Now, I would always say that families are hard. Keeping them together are hard. Normal families. There's varying degrees of dysfunction in every family. If we want to build relationships with our family, there is going to have to be some give and take. There might have to be some firm boundaries. When you meet with your sibling, perhaps we can have a relationship, but we can't talk about our parent. It may be that you're no contact and they're not. So you say, listen, I love you. I want to have a relationship with you, right? Let's build that and let's have a boundary that we don't talk about our parents. I see it very, very differently to you. I can see that your experience was completely different to mine. We lived a completely different life. Let's accept that and know that we're never going to meet eye to eye on it. Let's try and build a relationship away from that. That may be what you want to do. Or maybe it may be that the only option is that you can't have a relationship with them. Like with all of the work that I do and all of the stuff that I do, I never say anybody should or should not go no contact. I'm all about healthy, loving families. That's the ultimate goal. And for some people, that is simply not possible. It's not possible with the parent. For some people, it's not possible with the sibling. We have to highlight that. We have to talk about the truth. But I am trying to also highlight the nuance here. Be careful not to throw the grenade or be careful that you don't just throw the grenade for no reason. And I fucking understand if you reach the stage where you do have to just throw the grenade. But hopefully, seeing some of the things that I've explained here, seeing that in its entirety can help you make the decisions that are right for you. And you have to forget everybody else, because if you grew up with a toxic parent, then you grew up in high dysfunction and your experience is not the same as anybody else's. It's your experience. So find people that can hold that adequately for you and then make your decisions from there. I really hope this has helped. If it has and you haven't yet, make sure you have bloody subscribed, share this with people and all that kind of stuff, because I'm trying to work on the channel, man. See you on the next one.